Hey everybody, this is Michael McClintock and this is lesson 2 for beginning guitarists. Here in lesson 2, I would like to introduce 2 new chords. I want to talk about the D chord and the C chord. And then I'm going to go back and review everything that I talked about in lesson 1, and I want to put all of this stuff together. So let's get into it really quick. On the D chord, I'm going to try my best not to play the low E string. So I'm going to skip the low E completely. I'm going to go ahead and hit the open A, the open D, and then I've got my first finger on fret 2 on the A string. I'm going to put my ring finger, or my third finger, on the B string at fret 3. And then I'm going to put my middle finger, or my second finger, on the high E at fret 2. And then remember, we're going to take our thumb and we're going to push through each string, but not starting on the low E. We're going to start from the A. So we've got the A string, D string, G string, B string, and high E. And remember, trying my best to stay on top of my fingertips and play right behind the frets. And so again, this chord is called a D chord, and I've got my first finger on fret 2 on the G, my third finger on fret 3 on the B, and my second finger on fret 2 on the high E. The next chord I'd like to introduce is a C chord. And we can hit the low E open, or we can avoid it. But for now, I don't want to confuse too many things. I'm more concerned about getting a good sound and just getting these chords under our fingers. So let's not worry about not playing too many strings. So the C chord is going to be our third finger on the A string at fret 3, our second finger on the second fret of the D string, so fret 2 on the D, an open G, and our first finger at fret 1 on the B. And I've also got an open high E. Now, this chord is a little difficult, so I've been saying stay on our fingertips a lot, and this chord is a good reason of why we want to do that. It's difficult to get that third finger to stretch and not lean against the D string. And it's important that we hear the D string in this case, so try your best to get that third finger up on its fingertip. I'm kind of playing exactly on my fingertip, if you can see that. So this one, like I said, is very important. So to review, I've got my ring finger on fret 3 on the A. I've got my middle finger on fret 2 on the D, an open G, first finger, fret 1 on the B, and an open high E. So remember, we want to push through each string and listen for clarity. And that's our C chord. So to recap all the chords that have been discussed so far, we've got an E minor, which was an open low E, fret 2 with the first finger on the A, fret 2 with the second finger on the D, an open G, an open B, and an open high E. Now we were taking that chord and going to a G chord. So to review that, remember, our index finger does not have to move. He's just going to stay as well behaved as possible. He is on his fingertip, and I am going to shoot my middle finger, or my second finger, forward towards the low E, while trying to shoot my third and fourth fingers as quickly as possible towards the B and high E strings. And this is kind of the pro tip, or the secret of getting these chord changes as quickly as possible. So remember, from going to E minor to G, that index finger doesn't have to move. and you want to fire those fingers as quickly as possible in the direction to where they need to be. So now we're going to be going from this G chord to the D chord that I introduced at the beginning of the lesson. Now, when we're going from G to D, we have a guide finger, right? I used that term at the first lesson, and that means we have a finger that doesn't have to move at all. And that finger is finger 3. Our ring finger is going to stay put. Now, our index, or first finger and second finger, are going to do some serious moving. They're going to go from all the way here on the low E and the A to here to the G and the high E. Okay? Now, in the first lesson, toward the end of the lesson, I talked about, kind of the economics of motion. So if you can practice removing your index and your middle, right? Your first and your second finger at the same time. It's difficult, I know. Everybody wants to do 1, 2, but that's not the way to play the guitar quickly. You want to work on removing those 2 fingers at the same time and pulling them towards the G and the high E strings, right? So I want to just kind of work on removing those 2 fingers and then putting them back, right? Again, I'm on fret 3 on the low E and fret 2 on the A, and I'm just removing the fingers and I'm putting them back down at the same time. Remove them and put them back. Now I'm going to remove them. I'm going to remove my pinky finger or my 4th finger, and I'm going to place my index finger or my first finger on fret 2 on the G and my middle finger on fret 2 on the high E. So now we've got a G chord going to a D chord. So we've got E minor, first finger acting as a guide finger going to G, G going to D, we've got our 3rd finger acting as a guide finger here. Now, this is going to be our first transitional situation going from D to C where we don't have any guide fingers. And this unfortunately happens sometimes in guitar playing, and all we've got to do is just kind of drill the situation into the ground. Not exactly the most enjoyable part of learning how to play the instrument, but hey, it is what it is. So I'm going to just kind of try to push all my fingers into the direction they need to be. So whenever I'm thinking of going from D to C, the 2 fingers that have to do, the heaviest lifting are going to be the 3rd finger and the 2nd finger. They're going to shoot forward because the 3rd finger is going to fret 3 on the A and the 2nd finger is going to fret 2 on the D. So I'm kind of making that my focal point. Whenever I'm going from D to C, I'm looking in the general area of the A string and the D string at fret 3 and 2. Now, the first finger doesn't have to do as much. He's simply going to come off of the G and go back to fret 1 on the B. And that's not a ton of motion. That's not horrible. I think your index finger could actually have some strength built up by now, and that's not too bad. So what I'm really trying to focus on is the ring finger and the middle finger. They're going to fire forward, and all we can really do is just practice this motion. And one thing that we can do with not even really worrying about strumming is just placing the chord. Because right now I'm mainly concerned with the left hand. So I'm just going to place the C chord, and I'm going to place the D chord. Place the C chord, place D, and place C. So our main goal for week 2 is to get these 4 chords under our fingers as smoothly as possible. So we've got E minor going to G, going to D, going to C. Okay? Again, E minor, our first finger acts as a guide. He doesn't have to go anywhere. To G. Our 3rd finger can act as a guide. He doesn't have to go anywhere. Going to D, but unfortunately we don't have a guide finger here, so I'm going to make my focal point the A and D strings, and I'm going to grab a C. So we've got this nice fluid motion, right? Fingers are moving as a unit. Fingers are moving as a family, as much as possible. Now notice I'm not even worried about my right hand so much. I'm just placing the chord. Now, once you kind of have this under your fingers and you're feeling secure about this, just make sure you're getting a good clean sound. So remember, staying on our fingertips, staying right behind the frets as much as possible, checking each chord to make sure it sounds good. Remember, on the D chord, I'm not going to play the low E. And then on the C chord, we can hit the low E for now. In the future, we're going to try to avoid it. But like I said, I really don't want to get too bogged down on stressing out about some of the finer details. For now, if it's easier, just hit all 6 strings on the C chord. So now going back to lesson 1 to do a quick review of what was discussed. We introduced the strings. The low E, A, D, G, B, high E, and then we also want to work on coming back. High E, B, G, D, A, and low E. And then to really test yourself, you can just place your thumb on any string and just pick one. Look down and see what it was, and then that's the D. Pick another one. That's the B, etc., etc. And just kind of place your thumb on any string and try to, as quickly as you can, identify what it is. Low E, high E, A, B, D, G, etc. We talked about the right hand, simply just using the thumb and pressing down and through each string. So just trying to relax, not trying to really hit the string too hard, but just let the hand more or less fall down through the strings, pressing down through the low E, A, D, G, B, and high E. And then we talked about the guitar a little bit. We talked about the frets specifically. Fret 1, fret 2, and fret 3. And I'm referring to the metal bars here and the spaces behind them as the frets. So this is our first fret here, and the space behind it is also fret 1. Fret 2, space behind it, fret 2, and fret 3, the space behind it, fret 3. We touched on the left hand fingers, finger 1, finger 2, finger 3, and finger 4. And then we just talked about the technique of the left hand, staying on our fingertips and staying as close to behind the frets as possible and listening for a good, clean sound. Now, if you apply all that to the 4 chords that we've talked about, you're going to be in pretty good shape. So come back and join me for lesson 3 when we're going to talk a little bit about using a pick and putting these chords together fluidly and how these 4 chords can equal about 5 million different songs. So hang out and come back with me next Thursday and we'll continue learning together. Thanks a lot.